Tend to agree with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who believes any such investigation is probably unwise.
Does anybody think this would be happening, this investigation, if Powell had acquiesced to the president and set interest rates where the president wants?
This was a really big unforced error.
On Fox and Fox Business, some of the guests, some of the analysts are saying the obvious. The revenge tour, apparently now that it's hit someone they are more sympathetic to, is a bad idea. And if you have prosecutions being called in without a basis by politicians, that's called selective prosecution. It's actually illegal. It's not just Powell. While it is getting more pushback, as I've told you from last night, the other critics, people who've pushed back, are all on this assorted list. Trump is angry. There's new reporting that he attacked his own team at the White House last week, says he has weak people at the DOJ. They're not moving fast enough to go after his targets. That he's reportedly attacked Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying she's weak and ineffective. Of course, you have to translate this. When he says weak, in this instance, if he means that she's not going further down the line for fact-free or evidence-free illegal selective prosecution, what he's actually saying is she can't get his corrupt agenda done. MS Now is reporting that 4 prosecutors from the Civil Rights Division are resigning after a clash over that terrible shooting in Minnesota. 6 more prosecutors also resigning there over a push to investigate the victim's widow. Influential podcaster Joe Rogan, who was a big, key voice for Trump and hosted him in a widely viewed interview in the close of the 24 campaign, has continued to use his platform, which I'll remind you has a broader reach than many TV shows, to criticize the ICE policy.
You don't want militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
If Trump's friends say he's running a Gestapo, what's everyone else going to say? That's where we are now. We're joined by law professor Melissa Murray from NYU and MS Now legal contributor. The Powell domino, Professor, is falling hard. I've shown how this particular person apparently has attracted an ire that others did not. Politics, though, which is interacting with the law, is about addition. So I think critics of the president are happy to find, oh, this one triggered Wall Street, someone else triggered something else. What do you think is happening here in the president's complete inability to get the DOJ to win these cases?
Also, let's just be clear. The DOJ has actually done quite a lot for this president. They've abandoned a lot of the use of force prosecutions that we've seen in previous administrations. They have focused on this retribution campaign. Like, they may not have been successful in prosecuting those cases to completion, but they have struck fear in the hearts of a lot of people who might be critics of this administration. And that, I think, is a win for the administration. I mean, a main thing that you want to do if you're trying to promote this kind of change within the government is to silence dissent. And so make no mistake about it, the Department of Justice has been very effective in deterring and chilling that kind of conduct because of what they are willing to do in defense of this president, even if it's not always successful. I think the reason why Powell has not hit the way that it wants to is he's so closely connected to the Fed. Everyone recognizes that his term is going to end in May. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to roil the markets. It doesn't have to create this kind of economic instability at a time when the country is already reeling from a lack of affordability and people are really worried about where the economy is, even people within the Trump inner circle. So I think part of why this hasn't hit the way he wants it to is that it seems really unnecessary at this point.
The Wall Street Journal calls this lawfare for dummies. That's the term that the right wing has used when they say something selective. In the annals of political lawfare, there's dumb, the Journal writes, and then there's the criminal subpoena prosecutors delivered to Chairman Powell.
So, I mean, yes, this seems to be the case. I mean, part of it is there's a lot of distraction going on. Like, we've been talking about Powell, we've been talking about Venezuela. We haven't been talking about why the Department of Justice hasn't produced all of the Epstein files that they are required by law to do at this point. And that has been something.
Well, it depends who we is.
Well, not you, obviously. You've been talking about.
I mean, I hear you. Well, we cover that case a lot.
We cover that case a lot, but
next you're going to tell me we're not doing enough music.
Not spitting enough bars. No, you are always spitting bars, Ari. But I think for the general public, there's so many things logs in the
political
fire,
climate.
in the
Yeah, I hear
political
you.
climate, that it's hard to sort of keep track. And, that may be a place where the Department of Justice genuinely wants the public to be distracted from what is going on there. So there is that. The other thing I think that's really interesting with regard to Powell is how reckless it seems. Like, the Supreme Court right now has a case before it pending about Lisa Cook, who is also governor of the Federal Reserve. She has been ousted by the president. The court prevented him from ousting her entirely, but they're going to hear this case about whether he is able to remove her with or without cause. The fact that he is picking this fight with Jerome Powell on the eve of oral arguments, it just smacks of recklessness. I mean, we've seen this court. Like, they may not always be entirely attentive to what is going on in the public, but they definitely seem to think that there's something different about the Fed. And I think they would see an assault on the Fed.
Well, let's get into it, because the Fed is closer to the judicial branch than it is to an agency. If you simplify, people say, oh, look, the president's in charge of the government. Then you go, well, when judges rule against presidents, they also work for the federal government. They also get a paycheck from the federal government, and people forget it. That's why we have this whole thing with branches.
Right.
And the Fed's not its own branch. No. But historically, no president in either party has ever tried to do what he's doing or to do like fake cause. I mean, I think we have to call it what it is. There's no clear malfeasance with Cook. Nobody disagrees that if you found someone embezzling stuff, whatever, then yeah, you have a process. There, he's basically trying to oust two members of the Fed to get the sugar high we reported on tonight. Don't you think an honest Supreme Court would say, well, if you can do that, then it's not independent?
Well, I think that is exactly the point. I mean, the fact everyone knows what the point of all of this is. It's to juke the numbers, as they would say on the wire, get interest rates low, make the housing markets more effective going forward into the midterms. That's the plan, and everyone seems to know that. They're doing this on the eve of this oral argument that I think is going to have real repercussions for presidential authority. The Fed is almost sacrosanct to this court, perhaps because it is an independent branch in much the way the judiciary is an independent branch. Maybe it's because many of these justices have their own retirement accounts that they would like to see insulated from the shocks of the market.
So you think with Roberts and perhaps Barrett, there would be skepticism against Trump?
I think we will see skepticism. I think we saw skepticism in the tariffs cases. And again, like, the tariffs case was argued right after that November 2025 election where the Democrats ran the table. And I don't think you can disconnect the skepticism the court had for the tariffs from what they saw the night, like that week in the elections. Like, I think those two were inextricably linked. The court understands the zeitgeist. I think they're going to see what's going on with Jerome Powell. It's going to bleed into that oral argument on Lisa Cook's case.